I remember being in the car in Thunder Road. My mom showed me Thunder Road, and that one really. Maybe I was a couple years after that, maybe, or even it might have been just a year. But like,
Sure.
and Thunder Road was like, that's still like a huge song for me and for my mom and I. Like I got this guitar and I learned how to make it talk tattooed on my arm, which I know is arguably his corniest lyric, and he has said that. But to me, that line always resonated well with my mom and I. So.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and welcome to a new era of Set Listing Bruce. Not that will matter much to you, but it is now October, and so I am now a free agent. I am no longer part of the Southgate Media podcast family, though I will always love Martha and Rob, but they have decided to do some other projects, and so I'm kind of alone. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is Bobby is my first guest under this new umbrella, and he had just asked me, if I slip up and curse, is it okay? And I'm like, it is under the new rules. So with that said, Bobby, how the fuck are you doing? And welcome to the show.
I'm doing real fucking great. It's nice to be here. It's good, getting out right off the bat. But no, I'm
Yeah.
great, and I'm
Yeah.
thankful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, and I will, now that we have that out of our system, it will probably only come up if it's one of those effing things, right? Like it was always the effing guitar, like Bruce talked about, right?
Yeah.
It was never just the guitar.
Yeah.
So tell us a little about yourself, Bobby. Give us your elevator pitch to the audience.
So my name is Bobby Mahoney. I play in a rock and roll band called Bobby Mahoney and the Seventh Son. I'm from East Brunswick, but we primarily play in Asbury Park. But we've played regionally and into Canada and as mostly East Coast, but as far like west as Chicago and as far south as Florida and New Orleans. We play rock and roll. We play a mix of hard rock, punk rock, indie rock, classic rock.
When
But it
you
all kind of comes.
Yeah, when you play in New Orleans, where do you play?
We've only been there once. We played a place called Saturn Bar or Space Bar, something like that. Honestly, it was a one-off night. We were there we think we played on a Tuesday, I think.
Okay.
So I haven't been back since. I would love to get back there soon.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the TV show Treme,
Okay.
Which is on HBO. It's set in New Orleans post Katrina, and they show a lot of like Howling Wolf and the Spotted Cat and a lot of different venues. Not necessarily on Bourbon Street, but on Frenchman Street. Frenchman Street has a long history of live music, and so I just was curious.
That's cool. That's good to know. What was funny about that is because again, I had never been there before, and we got in on a Monday night, and we thought, Monday night we'll walk around, we'll see Bourbon Street, but it'll probably be kind of tame, on a Monday.
Yeah.
It was not.
No.
It was as wild as you would think. You would think it was like, the night before Mardi Gras. Like it was pretty crazy.
It is
Yeah, it was nuts. So in there, for those who've never been, you can go in and out of the bars with alcohol on Bourbon Street, and you don't really need to pay a cover to get into a lot of the places. At least when I was there.
Yeah, exactly.
But the show we set up for the next night was not anywhere near Bourbon Street, and we had a cover, which for an unknown band out of state, we realized was a mistake almost immediately. But, it was one of those things. It's like growing pains and learning, and, because we're still totally independent. So like myself and our guitar player do all the booking, and we have help from our local friends at Telegraph Hill Records that do our recordings and are good friends and help us out. But the booking show side of it has been, just us, in-house. So it's a lot of trying to reach out to local bands across the country, and we can show swap in Asbury Park, but we try to find bands to play with outside of outside of our area to get into new areas. So
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So that's when I'm not, and I teach music during the day. So, and I'm not, what I like to say, when I'm not yelling at microphones and, beating guitars, I'm teaching music and doing what I like to refer to as like a musical Indiana Jones a little bit. It's like, I get
Oh,
to be
nice.
during the day, I get to hang out and be a little bit more mild mannered, but at night I get to kind of go off and, yell at Nazis. So it's good.
Yeah. Do you teach at school or do you private lessons? What do you?
Both. I teach
Okay.
at a private school called Fusion Academy, which is actually like a national group of schools that's, across the
Yeah.
country. And I teach at the Fusion campus. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, the Princeton campus. I apologize. The
Oh,
Princeton campus.
okay.
And I also do private lessons outside here.
Okay.
So if anyone needs guitar lessons, let me
There we
hit
go.
me up. Do
Absolutely.
Zoom.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, welcome. So, let's talk about growing up. Where'd you grow up at, and what kind of music did your family listen to?
So I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in North Jersey, Livingston, grew up in Garwood, Roselle Park, and my family moved to East Brunswick when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I've been in East Brunswick my whole life. I'm still here for the most part.
Okay.
Growing up, my first musical memories were like a lot of people driving around in the car with their parents. And, for
Sure.
me, it was, Grateful Dead was one of the first bands that stuck out to me, honestly. Like as a fourth grader, Friend of the Devil and Casey Jones spoke to me as a, 8-year-old, which is probably concerning. But Warren Zevon, Meatloaf, Bon Jovi, Pink Floyd, Zeppelin and Springsteen were really what I kind of
Okay.
grew up on, AC/DC. My parents they felt that going to shows and, going to, not just rock shows, but Broadway shows. And it was part of my education,
Oh,
getting
that's
culture. And I was very fortunate. And I know a lot of people aren't as fortunate as me. And I've had very supportive parents. So I'm very, very lucky. But I got to go to a lot of concerts growing up. So I've got to see, a lot of my heroes, I'm very fortunate. But yeah, there was always, my parents were big concert people growing up. So that was, passed along to me.
That's kind of cool. That you're such passionate, and that's a wide range of artists that they were listening to. So that's kind of nice. Did you go through a spell where you rebelled against their kind of music, or have you, because it's such a wide variety, an eclectic taste, did you not go through that spell?
It sort of springboarded me to other music. So like, there's still like, I'm very fortunate. I have a very good relationship with my family, and like,
That's great.
whereas like, they started bringing me to see Springsteen, I would drag my mom when I got older to go see Jesse Malin. Cause and then I got into Jesse, and then I got to know Jesse, and that whole light of day conglomerate of artists I started to know and follow and become friends with. And, from there, like, so now my mom goes to see Willie Nile and Jesse Malin, like all the time, which is great. And, there were times though, like I get into more like, I'm more into punk music now, and I more things like again. But even my mom likes that. I've defended my mom in mosh pits. So, but they definitely, there are things that in my music that like sometimes that like they might not be a huge fan of or might not enjoy as much. But I've never really felt the need to rebel, because it was never like, oh, you can't listen to this. It's like just something that might not be their cup of tea. Like if I listen to Kendrick Lamar, that might not be something they enjoy, but I enjoy it,
So Bobby, you kind of answered this question already, but I'll ask it again. How did you discover Bruce? You kind of shared that, but when did you he become one of your guys, quote unquote, and what about him spoke to you?
So again, going back to the driving around in the car, like I remember my parents had the Greatest Hits CD, and I made on a particular trip to Canada, I remember vividly making them go back and forth between Born to Run and Born in the USA, because I just want for when I was little, those songs really I enjoyed a lot, and I could kind of get into those. And like, at the time, some of the other ones weren't, maybe weren't speaking to me as much. I still liked it, but like those two songs, I'm like, can we hear that one again? Track 8, track 13. I forget what the numbers were, but whatever, back and forth till, just annoying the hell out of them. But then, I remember being in the car in Thunder Road, my mom showing me Thunder Road, and that one really, maybe I was a couple years after that, maybe, or even it might have been just a year, but like,
sure.
And Thunder Road was like, that's still like a huge song for me and for my mom. And I got this guitar and I learned how to make it talk tattooed on my arm, which I know is arguably his corniest lyric, and he has said that. But to me, that line always resonated well with my mom and I. So,
well, Bobby, when I was a casual fan, I always loved that line too. And maybe it is a little corny, but the idea, and I think part of it is musically, where he's, Thunder Road doesn't have a chorus. And then just you have that break, and then, that line is kind of not, and I'm going to do because I'm not a musician, but it's almost like in a different tempo, it's like he's italicized it. If you were thinking of written word, like, and I got this guitar and I learned how to make it talk, it's just it's bold. It stands out from the song.
It almost doesn't fit in a way, because like the whole narrative, and I know we're going to talk about the narrative later.
Yeah,
and I've spent some time thinking about that.
Good.
But
I'm looking forward to hearing that.
But it's almost like, and as a songwriter, I get it, because like, whether or not you admit it or not, it's all somewhat it's all biographical,
right,
to some degree, So I think that was him in his youngness, almost showing his cards a little bit.
Yeah.
And like having painted this whole picture, but also being like, but it's still about the guitar.
Yeah.
A little bit. And like, to me, like, I picked up the guitar, but my mom tried to learn it when she was younger. It didn't really take. So then my grandfather would keep the guitar and, messed around with it and play Johnny Cash on it every now and again. And when I was 10, I said, hey, do you still have that old guitar, Pop? Can you bring that over? And he brought my mom's old guitar over, and he showed me how to play a couple chords, and I was kind of off. And, I never really took formal guitar lessons, but my mom would sit me down with, Neil Young's Heart of Gold, and be like, okay, that was the first song I learned how to play. And from there, like, I kind of taught myself. And so having that connection to Thunder Road in particular, but just that, seeing that Bruce was a kid from New Jersey, my mom's a teacher, my dad's works heating and air conditioning, I'm very fortunate, but, middle-class New Jersey family, seeing somebody do that, same thing why I love Brian Fallon, and Brian Fallon had a great moment when they headlined PNC for the first time. He talked about being the kid up in the back row going, why can't that be me, watching a show?
Yeah.
And I always kind of felt that way of like, well, why can't that be me? So that inspiration of, and now again, there's there's many differences, obviously, but that idea of like just going and playing music, and like, you never know what can happen. So that, bit of possibility, and just the energy of the shows too. Like him lighting himself on fire every night on the stage, that, spoke to me. And my mom brought me to see him for the first time on the Magic tour in 2007 at the, it was Continental Airlines at the time, but Brendan Byrne, Izod Center, whatever.
Yeah.
And my mom admittedly said it probably wasn't her favorite show that she's seen him play. But when he got to Born to Run in the encores, I was 12. I wept. Like, it really hit me. And that's probably when it really clicked for me. And my mom beforehand was like seeing him as a religious experience. And I kind of didn't really believe her. I was like, yeah, Mom, whatever. Like, I'm sure it'll be a great show. Don't get me wrong. But I'm like, there's no way. Like, that's, a little hippy dippy for me. But she was right, and it really kind of kicked me in the ass, really.
So I think that's a good transition to, Bobby. I always like to preface this with the amount of times you've seen Bruce is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are, right?
Of course,
because it just all depends. And so for the record, how many times have you seen him?
I was trying to count it out before, and that was something.
Yeah.
I think it's been at least like 25 times.
Okay.
Which I'm very fortunate, but I realize that's a drop in the bucket compared to some people. But I also started a little late, in my defense.
Yeah. Well, that's me too, right? Like, I didn't see my first show till the Rising Tour 2002. So, and originally I'm living in Texas. There's a great line in Sports Night, one of the episodes, where I didn't know we could do that. It never thought to me to travel. Like, if Bruce was coming to Dallas, then I would see him. If he's not coming to Dallas, I didn't get to see him. There was no thought of the concept of, you own a car, you
You
can
can go.
drive, you can go somewhere. So I've mentioned this before, but My Boss Time is the website where you can go create a free account, and it lists every show.
That's
So you
cool.
could go through and you can like, oh yeah, I saw him here on Magic. And let me think about it. Yes, I think I did see that show, and it would track it for you. Just
Yeah,
it's a rabbit hole that will go through that you'll go, oh, okay, where did 3 hours go?
I believe it. And I used to, when I was in middle school or whatever, I'd come home from school and go on back streets and look at whatever he played the night before and look at the set list and like, oh, look at he threw in and this slot and like oh wow, this happened, and I would follow along. And Europe, same thing. And
Yeah.
like I've gotten to see him a lot of special times. Like I've been very
Okay.
fortunate. A couple that come to mind. Carnegie Hall, he played a benefit with Jerry Seinfeld there for raising money for autism research a
Oh,
couple years
nice.
ago. That was incredible. Not only because that in itself is incredible, but he got there a little late. My mom and I were by the stage door, and he kind of didn't stop. Him and Kevin went in, and they were sound checking. So we kind of went into the lobby of the theater, but they weren't letting people into the actual theater yet because he was sound checking. But I could hear him playing a little bit, and like an usher must have walked through or something, and the door was open a crack.
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed my mom and I said, "Come on." So we go in, we're standing in the back of the theater. It's just us and him. And he had to have played longer in the sound check than he did in the actual show.
How funny.
Yeah, getting to stand, in Carnegie Hall, empty, having him play Thunder Road to my mom and I, that's, priceless, really, honestly. So that, a lot of the Light of Day shows, at Asbury Park at the Paramount Theater, for the Light of Day Foundation, for those of anyone listening who doesn't know what that is, that's a foundation that raises money for Parkinson's and similar related illnesses. Bob Benjamin does a lot of great work. Shout out to them. They've been good to me. I started going to those shows as a fan. Like, I'm waiting outside the stage door, talking to Jesse Malin and, Bruce driving by in his truck, and signing a couple of things for people, and, me trying to give him a demo CD then, and then, cut to the next year where I got to play one of the shows at like the Wonder Bar, and then I got to I became friends with Willie Nile and the guys in Joe Grishecki's band, Danny Gochner in particular, Joe's guitar player. So I actually cut my teeth guitar teching for a lot of these guys. And so Willie Nile breaks a string, for a while, I was the guy that would run out and help him fix it, or if Danny from the House Rockers needed to switch guitars for something, I would help him out. And, so I was very lucky to get to stay out of Kevin Buell's way.
Yeah.
That was my main instruction. They cross first, then you do,
Yeah.
So, but things like that, I got to be close, and I got to, meet Bruce a couple of times, and Danny got to introduce me. And I met him as a fan a couple of times, but I was introduced to him once or twice. And again, I don't think he would know me if I fell on him, but Danny was very gracious to say, "Hey, Bruce, this is Bobby Mahoney. He's a young singer-songwriter. He's going to be guitar teching for us tonight." So Bruce kind of looked at me up and down and says, "Don't fuck up. You can bleep that one out."
Yeah.
Or not. And then he said, and then so after and then he laughed. So he was obviously, at least half kidding. So then after the show, I thanked him, and I got to kind of go up at the finale and jam with the whole Light of Day family. And so that was, getting to play on stage with Springsteen. That's like, I can die tomorrow, honestly.
Exactly. Yes.
That's it. And getting to stand, next to the guy who wrote Thunder Road and sing it, at crazy. But after the show, I ran up and was like, went up to the dressing room before it got crazy. I was like, "Thank you for the opportunity, but thank you also for just the music and everything." And he said, he looked at me, he's like, "You had the show on your shoulders and you didn't fuck up." So I was like, good. Okay.
That's things that you, when you're feeling depressed or feeling down or feeling discouraged, right? Because we all have those moments, right?
Yes.
That you can go, well, once Bruce Springsteen looked at me and told me I didn't fuck up, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, I've got that going for me.
Exactly. It's like, I don't got much, but that's it. And, I'm very fortunate to have had experiences like that. And as a fan being in the general admission at MetLife, or to be able to be that close to him. Like last time I was at Light of Day when he was there, he warmed up on one of my guitars. So that's I can't post the picture anywhere because it's going to be in a documentary about Willie Nile eventually. And the photographer was very nice to send me the picture. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like, Bruce is holding the guitar that my grandfather left to me. And it's just like,
wow.
That's,
that's
unreal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. It would be hard not to be a fanboy. And I respect you, not like, okay, hey, Bruce, I don't ask for autographs often, but you understand this is my grandfather's guitar you're playing on. If I could have you sign that, because I will. Years ago, when my son was little, we were at a baseball game, a Texas Ranger game, and a player, and I can't remember the player, but hit a foul ball, and it came, and I had no depth perception, and it's coming, and it hits me on the shoulder, right? It hits me on the shoulder, and then bounces onto the field. And then the ball boy, was nice enough that they said, yeah, give it to the fan. So he reached, grabbed it off field, gave it to me. And Will Clark, who was playing first base for the Rangers at the time, looked at me and like, no, use your glove, not your shoulder. Like he was giving me a hard time. And I asked the ball boy between innings, I said, would you get in trouble if I asked you to try have Will Clark sign it? Because he gave me crap. He goes, yes, I would get in a lot of trouble. I said, okay, then I'll move on. But it was just the idea of that moment, not necessarily collecting an autograph, but that moment. Yeah. So I that's got to be a treasure.
Well, that's why I'm happy I have that picture, if nothing else. Yeah. And again, like at some point in time when I'm with you, eventually, hopefully we can hang out. I'll show it to you, or if I can get permission to post it. But I do have my friend, before I got to meet him, my friend Elijah, and his family got to meet him at a sort of a private thing at Fairleigh Dickinson University. And he actually signed my mom's copy of Born to Run. So to Bobby. So he drew the little guitar thing. So
nice.
So that's so there was definitely moments where I was a bit more of a fanboy, and like even like Danny from the House Rockers will tell you when he first walked in one of the sound checks I was at, I was I must have tuned the same guitar 15 times.
Sure, absolutely.
Like absolutely looked like my chicken with my head cut off.
Yeah.
But I like to think I've gotten better at it.
Yeah. You wonder, do you ever get over the fact that he becomes Bruce from Jersey, right? Like, it's Bruce from Freehold, or, and once again, to bring back to sports, there was a coach for a while for the Dallas Stars called Ken Hitchcock. Mm-hmm. And there's a sports station here called The Ticket. And randomly, he would just pick up the phone and call on a weekend. Or on a way, and just not a scheduled interview, just, hey, I heard you guys talking about this, let me visit. And they said that he almost became Ken from Compel. In sports, like, hey, we've got Ken from Compel here. And it never really did. So you're like, I wonder how comfortable do you have to be, or unless you grew up with him, he will always be Bruce effing Springsteen, right? Like, no matter how casual he is.
It's really hard. And like, it's even, I feel for him because, like, again, he's one of the celebrities that I feel like is more casual than many. And even with him, like, especially now, like, it's really tough. Like, PS gets mobbed everywhere. And, anywhere he goes, adults turn into children.
Yes.
And again, and myself included.
Yeah.
So people just kind of are fawning all over him all the time. And like, for every moment, because again, like I've been blessed to have moments with him that people would kill for. And everyone, but it's like, and again, like you said, like, in that moment, you have that opportunity but 1,500 times a day, because everybody has their moment,
Yeah.
So like, I can see how it could be taxing after a while, but he was very soft spoken. He was very kind, and you can just tell he's just always thinking.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like a very intelligent person.
So let's switch just for a moment to your music. So you talked about you got your guitar and you learned how to make it talk. Um, but w- did you feel this calling to make music almost immediately, or was
Um,
this something that you slowly came to?
I remember specifically when I was before I was 10, so you're probably like, 7 or 8 years old. I remember specifically being like, I do not want to be one of those teenagers that just sits in his room and listens to music. I remember like actually saying that out loud, I think. And I was kind of wrong. That was, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy in the opposite way. But yeah, music at first didn't really interest me. And I think it wasn't until I got sort of that visual element of like people playing guitars and like being on stage. And I always liked performing. Like when I was 2 or 3, I would be reciting Disney movies, for my family and, doing songs from Mary Poppins. So I always liked performing. Um, but I think it was like honestly, even like I think Bon Jovi probably got me into music earlier than Springsteen did, but it was like kind of like the stepping stone. I was a huge Bon Jovi fan when I was younger, and still am. I love them. But the I wanted to start writing songs when I was like 10, and that's when I saw like Bon Jovi on a Verizon commercial. I think it was "Have a Nice Day," and like that's when I wanted to learn the guitar, and that's when I asked my grandfather if he could bring the guitar over. But I wanted to play the guitar to write songs because I wanted to really be a singer, but my voice at the time and was not is not I'm not a gifted enough singer. That just I'm not, and I've worked very hard to get my voice to a point where it is now. But um, but like, and that's another reason why I look up to guys like Springsteen and Neil Young and Jesse Malin, and these guys that have maybe not the best voices, but unique voices, and they embrace their voices in a way that it's them, you know,
Yeah,
and
Bruce was on AMC right a couple of years ago, and was he introduced a couple of films, and the guy interviewing, I'm drawing a blank on which of the hosts was doing it, but and Bruce talked about he did not think he had a great voice, and that's like why he would never do like an album of covers. And of course, I'm
yeah,
screaming at the TV, no, do man, I would so buy Bruce Springsteen sings the songs of Johnny Cash, or Bruce
yeah.
Springsteen does country western standards. I would like in a minute would love that.
But
So,
he's a
but
songwriter, and that's where
exactly,
and I felt the same way. Like we do cover songs in our sets, but not and like we for like in like a set of 20 songs, maybe we'll do 2 or 3 covers.
yeah,
But again, I wanted to learn the guitar to write songs, and that's the idea of telling stories. And like I think I also like just the idea of being a writer. Like I think in other points of my youth, I think wanted to be like a writer. I wanted
yeah,
to write books or something like that. Or I love movies, so I could see myself writing movies. But I think I like writing songs because I think songs can be a movie. I think songs can be a book, and that's what
yeah,
like Bob Dylan winning the Nobel Prize or Nobel Laureate or whatever the Nobel Prize, I think, right? Well, he got
yeah,
some very, very, very the highest writing award you can get. And it's the idea that songwriting can be this sort of higher art while condensing into learn more from a 3-minute record than we ever learned in school.
yeah,
It's wild to me how in this movies would be nothing without music.
yeah, exactly.
Or movies as we know them now would
Right.
would be nothing without music. So just that's what called to me was that idea that I can create songs,
Yeah,
and like I'll
and
figure out the rest. Like I got to learn the guitar and have to learn how to sing and learn how to write songs. Oh, I'll figure that out as I go, But
right, yeah. There's that great scene in Love Actually where the young kid, tells his stepdad, he's in love with the girl and he has a plan. He's going to become a drummer. He's going to become a
yeah,
musician, right? And he's like, and Liam Neeson, like, well, look at Ringo. He has a Bond girl. I mean, yeah. He said, couple plant things though. One, you don't play the drums, and the kid just minor details, right? Like, no, I have a plan now. And I could see that. I'm going to, I'm going to create music. I'm going to write songs. Yeah, but you don't know how to read music. You don't know how to play a guitar. You don't particularly like your voice. Details.
Yeah,
Once you have a
yeah,
plan, we'll figure it out the rest of the way as we go.
yeah. None of it made sense. And my friends actively at times, like I got some of my best friends, I love them dearly, tried to talk me out of it. Be like, your voice isn't that great. Maybe I don't know why you're doing this. And for a little while, I just focused on guitar and thought, okay, well, I like Richie Sambora. I could just play guitar, even though he's an amazing singer too. But like, I could just play guitar in a band. That would be fine.
Yeah.
And then I started a band in junior high, and we all kind of drew straws, and I kind of got stuck singing.
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, well, I guess I got to figure it out, and here I am. So, and in that regard, like in some ways, and I've said this to people again, and I've said it a bunch to you already. I'm very fortunate. I could hang it up tomorrow. I've done things that I'm very thankful for, and people go lifetimes without being able to do. And that sounds, braggy, and like I'm just very thankful for it. But I'm also still very hungry, and I'm very excited for the next things coming up, and just the whatever's next in it's the musical journey. Because again, I'm trying to be less focused on a destination with it, or feeling like putting pressure on myself for like a numbers thing or like a perceived level of success. I'm just, right now I'm trying to just write the best songs I can, and get them out to people and hope some people enjoy them.
So this, we're slowly starting to come back up. Though I don't know how things are there in Jersey. In Texas, we're hurting.
Yeah.
And we're under a political governor who seems to be just embracing the everything wrong with conservatism. But for this past year and a half, how about you? Like, how do you promote music when you can't play live? Like, how do you keep that creative fires going?
What a wonderful question that I've been figuring it out moment to moment, moment to moment as we go. I've been very fortunate again. I've been kept busy. I was able to do a live stream. I've been doing a lot of live stream concerts. In particular, I was doing one on Facebook every Sunday morning called Bloody Marys and Coffee with Bobby. Because I was thinking, because everybody when it all kicked off and we were all stuck at home. Thank you. Everybody was doing like 7 or 8 o'clock at night live streams, and it was be really tough to get people to watch because there were so many other people doing the same thing. So I kind of picked a time slot that might just be dealing with church, but other than that, most musicians weren't going to be up playing the guitar that early. So I had a good, core 50 to 100 people that were tuning in every week, and that kind of blew my mind. And, just connecting with a lot of Springsteen fans, honestly, but like around the world, like, people from the UK were setting their Sunday afternoons so they can tune in and watch, people from all over Europe, Sweden, and, just very cool to me. And again, that's another thing that Springsteen's music has brought me, is that this, that and the Light of Day community has introduced me to so many international friends. And, but so getting back to the question, yeah, so live streams, I've been recording new songs, and we've been recording a record / EP. I'm not exactly sure what we're calling it yet, but we've been recording songs for the last year and a half as well in Homedale at my friend's house in his basement. He has a studio set up there, and we've been doing that. Shout out to Joe Palm. And that, and just writing songs, and, teaching via Zoom, and, that's really it. But we've been able to play a couple of times. We did a couple outdoor socially distanced shows where we, tried to be as careful as possible, because I also recognize that, while the entertainment industry really did shut down, some people really didn't stop playing. Some people were still out playing the local bars, and, that were available, or playing outside places. And so at a certain point, I was like, well, people need to be able to do something. People are stuck in their house. People need to be able to do something. So some friends of mine helped me put together a couple outdoor shows. We did one in Asbury Park in someone's front yard. Shout out to Asbury Sunset Presents. We did one at the Count Basie Theater. We did set up outside. They had a whole outdoor series of shows that we sort of came up, got the ball rolling with us.
Yeah.
Shout out to Joe Paluto over at the Count Basie, and they were all super nice to us. And then we, in July, for that 2-week span where we thought things were going to be okay, when everyone here was like burning their masks and everything, not myself, but other people, and when it kind of was looking up, we got to play a show at House of Independence in Asbury Park, which is a nice big indoor venue, but I booked it there on purpose, so I knew we wouldn't really sell it out.
Right.
But people would be able to spread out to their comfortability, And we had 100 more people than I expected, which was great.
That is nice.
But now if we had 100 more people, I don't know if I'd be as excited about it, given where we're at now, a couple months later. But it's still a very good problem to have. But we had a great lineup of bands that night too, so we've been able to keep busy. It's just for a while there, I felt morally obligated to not play, because to me it was like, I don't want someone to get sick and die because I needed someone to clap for me and go, "Yay, Bobby!" That to me didn't feel right.
Yeah, Jason Isbell had similar thoughts, right? Like you had to, at the show lately, just a few weeks ago in Fort Worth, you had to prove either you were negative with COVID or that you had been vaccinated. Same thing coming up. I'm going to see the Eagles, and the venue has said that you need to have proof of vaccination or a negative test within a certain amount of days. So, because you don't want people to get sick because of you, because you're going to, I don't want people to get sick because I want to go hear Desperado, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
And again, like, at a certain point, like, it's the artists and their crew's livelihood. So I understand the need for people to get out. And I'm in the very fortunate position of having a day job and teaching during the day to keep the lights on. So I was able to not play. Whereas other people who maybe didn't want to put people in a situation where they didn't want to do it, but they had to, because you got to put food on the table if you have a family, and that's how you got to play. So I understand that. I'm not trying to shame anybody for playing,
No,
but
I understand what you're saying.
It's a hard spot,
It is.
So I really waited as long as possible, and even now, I'm really not going out of my way to play if people are reaching out to me and I feel it's a worthwhile cause or a safe way to make a couple bucks, then I'm willing to entertain it. But we have a couple like things, full band shows that we have something in Philadelphia booked in November, but like, we'll see, and as I always say, people ask me, do you have anything coming up? And I have a couple things, but like that could change tomorrow. I could get a call tonight and, we could have something coming up much sooner. But again, I'm not really going out of my way because I still think it's not a great situation. And I think right now behind the scenes, I think the entertainment industry is freaking out again, it seems.
Yeah, I think so.
So again, whenever this airs, we'll see, it could be a very different situation.
Yeah, well, it is. And I think it could be, we hopefully it'll be fine, but it is, as I said, we're recording this, in the middle of September. This will be out in the 1st of October. And, I just don't know. I have tickets to go see the Eagles. I'm going to see Michael Nesmith and Mickey Dolenz, who were, two of the two remaining surviving Monkees. Lily Hylett is coming, and here, who's John Hyatt's daughter. I'm a big fan of hers. And for the first time ever in my adult life, Kiss is coming, and I'm going to see Kiss.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the 17-year-old Jesse who loved Rock and Roll All Night and Destroyer. I'm kind of excited.
That's good.
That Kiss Alive 8-track did get a lot of play when I was in high school.
They do it like nobody else. You'll have a good time.
Yeah, it should be. So let's go back to Bruce. Let's talk about songs and albums that mean a lot to you. Maybe share your thoughts on Letter to You, Western Stars. You take us where you want, Bobby.
So, like a lot of people, for me, the the cream of the crop is, Born to Run, Darkness. Really those two, it could kind of go back and forth either way. Like Thunder Road, Born to Run, Jungle Land in itself, done. That's all you need. But then you add 10th Avenue Freeze Out, you add She's the One, you add Backstreets, Me Across the River. That's incredible. The fact that he wrote that at 25 in a little house in Asbury Park, or not Asbury, in Long Branch, but New Jersey, like, that's crazy. Darkness is the guitar record, so as a guitar player, I really appreciate that record, and it's the darker quality to it, and it's the punk record, so like that I like. The River's great. I love the songs on Greetings, like, listening to those the John Hammond demos is like super inspirational to me, just because again, like, it's where it starts. Letter to You I absolutely loved. I think the band sounds great. The documentary made me cry a lot. It's all really good. I think the older songs that they chose are on it that are perfect, and
they really are good. Yes.
I love Matt. I love The Rising. I grew up with those songs. I didn't see him on that tour. My parents saw him at Giant Stadium in the rain on that tour, and they said that was one of the best shows they ever saw. He was just running out and, getting as wet as the crowd. But so like, Mary's Place, The Rising, Lonesome Day, those songs, I loved those growing up. The first new Springsteen song I heard on the radio was Radio Nowhere. So I always have a fondness for that. I remember even at the time, I didn't think I really loved this song. And even now, it's not my favorite, but I definitely have an appreciation for it and a nostalgia for it for sure.
Well, for me, my first show was The Rising, but I was a casual fan. Like I had listened to The Rising a couple of times, but I hadn't done my homework.
Yeah.
So then when he was touring, I'd seen him live. Then he released Devils and Dust. And man, I wore that CD out just on repeat constantly in the car. And so when I went and saw him there, like I knew all the songs, whether I liked Silver Palomino or not, I just, I've seen him. And so I have that same feeling about Devils and Dust. I realize it's not a quote unquote great album, but it has a special place to me because that was the first, like, I feel like when I went to the show, the teacher was going to give me an A for, like you did all your prep work.
You were there.
I did the pre-course, curriculum completed. So I was ready to do.
That's good. And like, I mean, that's Devils and Dust is a great song. I love that song. And like that record, again, like those songs are movies, and like, again, like I can't believe I didn't say this yet though. I need to pause. Nebraska is one of my favorites as well. I'm a big Nebraska apologist. I do love that record as a songwriter because to me, if we got the Electric Nebraska, which I would love to hear one day, I think a lot of people would. To me, if that came out, it wouldn't have served the songs. Because again, as a songwriter, everything you do has to serve the song.
Exactly. Yes.
So those songs that are so dark and so depressing, and again, movies, really, the medium in which they were recorded perfectly reflects that. And that's like, again, like now, is it the best sounding record? But no, not at all. But that idea, and that's on purpose, but the idea that they're sound haunted, and that's why that as an art piece, that's so great. Now, again, is that going to be, am I going to throw on, Highway Patrolman while I'm on a Saturday drive in gorgeous weather? No. But that's the kind of record you listen to and by yourself in the dark, and, just really wallow in it or bask in it, depending how you want to look at it. That record is great to me.
Yeah.
Like, his acoustic stuff I love.
Yeah. So Bobby, and this is not fair, but I'm going to ask you anyway. It often, you read and you hear people that tend to love more of the alternative rock, whether it's grunge or or punk. Often Nebraska will be mentioned as one of their favorites. Why do you think that is?
Because it speaks to the punk in all of us that's recording a record on, whether it's like a 4-track, cassette recorder, or, like my students now that have iPads and are recording on GarageBand on their Macs or whatever. And like, it's the same thing. It's that idea that you don't need a $1 million studio to make a piece of art that matters. Now that leads into that idea now that anybody with a laptop can make music. So there's a lot more art, let's say, to cut through, because back in when Springsteen was started to record, he had to get, not necessarily, but like to get those demos with John Hammond, he had to go into Columbia, he had to be working in this, through those studios were expensive and not everybody could just go and cut singles and stuff and records. So growing up now, anybody with a laptop can do it. But Nebraska sort of speaks to that idea that, you just need a cassette recorder and you can get your point across. And yeah, to me, it's within reach while also being wildly without of reach, out of reach, because that idea of it being such a happy accident, and happy is not the right word for that record, but that so many things had to go perfectly wrong for it to sound the way it does now, and for it to translate. And they even seen those rumors that he walked around with the tape in his pocket for a while, and that maybe even like wore it out. I think that's a little, I don't know if that's true or not, but that idea that he stuck to his ground also artistically, and again, his next record was going to be his biggest commercial selling record of all time. And he could have sort of jumped to that if he wanted to earlier. And again, he had Born in the USA as a song, but he had the artistic know-how or instinct to hold on to that one. But then to put out the 10 that he did on Nebraska, I think it was 10. But yeah, there's just something about those songs that you don't also need to be a fantastic, those are just a couple of chord songs. Like they're for punks and for folk, they're right in people's wheelhouse. I think that's another reason too.
Yeah, I think well said, really well said. You've talked about, it seems like you've seen Bruce a fair amount of times. Are there songs you're still chasing though? Are there songs that when you get to see him live again in 2022, 2023, whenever we get a tour again, are there songs you're still wanting to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of like, tracks are things I really love, like Tracks and The Promise. So like my friends and I, like we love Lion's Den. Big he has played, my friend got to see him play Roll of the Dice, but I'd like to see him do that.
Lion's Den is one of those that I would love to hear.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, like it's weird because on one hand, like for a while, like Rosalito was one that he didn't play for some reason for a long time when I saw him, and even Thunder Road, I didn't see him play the first couple of times, or maybe the first time he didn't play it. At this point in time, as I want another band tour, but there's a lot of those high energy rock and roll songs that I don't want him to hurt himself doing or feel the need he has to do to appease us. So part of me would, at this point, I want to see him doing the songs that he wants to do, I think. And to me, that's more interesting than me being like, oh yeah, I like, now that said, like, of course there's things like I'd love to hear, like Lion's Den, and like something weird like Harry's Place would be a cool thing to hear, or The Promise, or Some of the stuff off the like Letter to You, like um, If I Were a Priest, and those older songs like that. Those we need to hear live. Like, so that I'll be happy to hear. Hopefully, I don't know. I can't think of any like one particular like white whale of like oh, I need to hear him play. And of course, when we hang up, I'll think of something. I'm sure.
Sure. No, I get that. I totally understand. The let's go back to your music again a little bit. Where can people find it?
I like to say anywhere you can purchase, stream, or steal music nowadays. So,
Okay,
well,
yes.
I have our website, BobbyMahoneyMusic.com, as well as, Bobby Mahoney and the Seventh Son on Spotify, on Apple Music, on Bandcamp. Bandcamp is probably if you wanted to purchase music from us, that's probably the best way to do it.
I've told that from a couple of people that seems to be the most band musician friendly, option, right?
Most, I would say there's
Yeah,
still things that could be better about it, but
sure.
overall, yes, it's definitely short of emailing me directly and you paying me directly. That's the
Yeah,
best.
like, hey, here's $25, right?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it truly is. Good. Yeah, I just saw the
YouTube is another
website.
one.
Yeah. All right. Very nice. Um, the what's next for you? What are you looking for next musically? What do you want to
So,
do?
well, we have 5 songs right now that we're in the process of mixing. We started
Yeah.
tracking these songs in like last October, so it's been almost a year. And it's not like we've been working on these I've been beating myself up every day about them, but it's not like we've been in the studio every day for a year. It's because of COVID and everything. We, tracked them all socially distant in my friend's basement, like all apart. And then we've periodically been able to go and track more and mix more and things like that. And we've been chipping away at the block. I'm thinking we're getting close to finishing it. But at this point in my life, we've been fortunate to put out a bunch of CDs and have a bunch of songs online. And I don't really want to put anything out until it's really, truly done in my mind. And I've been the kind of person to like book the CD release show before the CD's done,
Yeah.
So I really try to, at this point, I don't want to do it if it's not really good. So I'm really trying to get these 5, this EP, I guess, or either collection of singles or an EP, or we'll see what happens. It could end up something different, but I think it's going to be an EP of songs that they were a lot of them were written pre-pandemic, but they have all kind of taken on new meaning to me. And a lot of them are more about just like being in a band, being a creative in this sort of weird time, and just the different things that does. And also just a little bit about the mortality thing has worked its way into it, just because of the year and a half we've all been through.
Sure. Absolutely.
So those songs, and then I have a list of songs of mine that that are all in various stages of completion, that I could go in and start recording tomorrow, or some I like to let things marinate. So
Okay.
I'll write a song and it'll sit for a while in my notebook until it's time for I need something, or I need to pull an idea from it, or I find myself humming it one day 6 months after I wrote an idea. I'll go, oh, that must be a good one then. And then I'll go and finish fleshing it out and bring it to the band, and we'll flesh it out from there. And then we flesh it out more in the recording process. And it really is kind of like taking a piece of marble and slowly chipping away at it until you have sculpture eventually.
Yeah, right. It is and that's what the sculpture said. I can't remember which one, right? But like Michelangelo or somebody said, I see that and I just take away everything that's not of what my finished piece is. And so I think that's well said. So Bobby, is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. You didn't ask me about how I know John Alba, because that could be a good one. For listeners, if you checked out the John Alba episode, John and I were high school friends he was originally the guitar player in Seventh Son, and
Right.
then later Bobby Mahoney and the Seventh Son, because we started as just like a high school band for like a battle of the bands, and it was really supposed to be a one-off gig, and I was simultaneously doing a lot of solo acoustic gigs in Asbury. And then when people went off to college and we had a different lineup, and it kind of was my band sort of anyway. I was singing and playing guitar, and rather than have separate things, we kind of just put the branding all together. And it really, a part of it was because of just not wanting to rename Facebook pages, partially.
Yes, but, that's funny.
Because John Alba came up with the name Seventh Son, and we got it from an AC/DC lyric from the song Bad Boy Boogie. Okay. And to me, I think of it as like the rock and roll spirit, and just that, you know, Angus Young, you know, Springsteen, just very, you know, high energy rock and roll. So that's what it means to me. Right. So, but John and I, we've been to many concerts together. We've seen Springsteen a bunch together at, you know, we went to Hershey together to see him. John was in the audience that night at Light of Day when I got to play with Bruce. You know, John has just been a great supporter of my music, and just when he's in the band, when he's not in the band, when he's, you know, just as a great friend, as a collaborator, you know, it's great knowing him. So.
Yeah, I love talking to him. I thought I was really proud how the interview went. And it meant a lot to me, you know, after he tweeted something along the line of, if you really want to know me, this is one of the best interviews, you know, so that made me feel very good. Yeah, so very cool. I'm glad you have that connection. And you guys have stayed, you know, he's in Florida now, but you guys have stayed connected and friendly, right?
Definitely. And like, actually, he's visiting up right now, and I'm going to see him on Tuesday. But he's gonna come hang in the studio a little bit and lend his ears to us for us a little bit.
Oh, good. But that'll be fun.
Yeah, no, anytime we've been in Florida, he's let us crash at his place, and, you know, and Houston, when he's in town or when we're in town, he'll still come up and jam with us. And
it's
great. Is it? And, you know, there's not many people that I have that connection with on stage that I have with him, and
yeah,
it's great. And I'm very fortunate to play with really great guys in general, and, you know, the current band is awesome, and I hope we get to Texas and can play for you eventually. And
that would be awesome. I would love that. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so, you know, that's really, I think, you know, our music is really for anyone who's fans of Gaslight Anthem, Against Me, Menzingers. If you like Springsteen, you'll probably like us.
Good.
Yeah. So,
do you do a Springsteen cover?
Occasionally. Well, I do a more acoustic, yeah, but I do a bunch. Like we do Pink Cadillac. We've done. I do Thunder Road. I do. Willie Niles, bass player Johnny Pye, says I do the fastest version of Rosalita he's ever heard. I also like doing Open All Night from Nebraska. We did a Springsteen cover set a couple years ago for a Why Hunger benefit with Joe Durso. And we got to do Roll the Dice and Lion's Den and a couple songs we wish that we would get to see him do. So that was fun, you know. So I
bet that would have been fun.
Song. Yeah,
that would have been fun. That's cool. That I would have liked to have been at that show. That would have been neat.
Yeah, I think that I gotta see if there's a video online. Either John or I can see if we can get it to you. But then John played guitar for us that night. Actually, he came out of his way to. We did like kind of. It was our band. But we kind of had an extended band a little bit, and had some other guys play with us, and, you know, ended up being a lot of fun. So
that sounds great. That's good. All right. Before we get you out of here, I got to ask you the Mary question. Okay. If you are a Bobby fan and you're listening, this is your first Set Listing Bruce episode. First, thank you for listening. Jay Armstrong is an honors English teacher, recently retired from the Philadelphia area. And when he was teaching, he would take 2 days every year with his seniors, and they would break apart Thunder Road. They would look at all the lyrics. They would talk about the imagery that Bruce used, the themes. And at the end of the 2 days, he asks the question, does Mary get in the car? Bobby, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I like to think so.
Okay.
I think, given everything and how imperfect they both are, I think she gets in the car.
Okay.
And at least I like to think so, because as a songwriter, as a romantic, I like to think she got in the car and took that chance. And then just that melody at the end, I think, is a triumphant melody, but it's also again, like Bruce has said, it's a song about beginning.
Yes.
So I do think I think she got in the car.
Good. I like that answer. I've had someone on the show that said when it's the E Street Band doing it live, she gets to the car. When it's him acoustic, she doesn't, because
That's fair.
because of the ending. Because he said, then when it's the E Street Band, it is a triumphant, going out. But when it's him himself, he's kind of the more na 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 na, that it feels more like he's driving by himself.
It could be, or maybe it's just that they're either older, or it's a quieter triumph.
Yeah.
He's like, and like with the E Street Band, we think of this grand, like, moment, like, like a movie, it's like,
Yeah.
hand held out, like, are you gonna get it? And but maybe in the quieter version, maybe it's more like a nod, like a,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, and that's a good point. And like, it's interesting to think that, like, the lyrical content of the song could be changed based on the the way the music is performed, in different instances.
Well, and there is something to be said for he chose to do Born in the USA as a triumphant rock ballad, not the blues version.
Yeah.
That's a conscious choice he made.
I think he regrets that, though.
You think so?
Well, maybe not his bank account, but I think because I've only seen him play that version, the big band version, once here. And it was only when he was playing the full album. I don't think he likes to play it in the States on purpose, because I think he doesn't want to give that portion of his audience that beer drinking moment, the flag waving, the false, the lack of listening, because I don't think the audiences here listen hard enough. He'll play it in Europe, but I could be wrong, but I don't think I think if he could have his way, I think he would, as an artist, I think he would have done it differently, maybe. Again, I could be wrong. If someone were to ask him, he might feel very differently about it. But I could, because again, it's just so misconstrued. And to me, I mean, I love this song, and it was one of the first songs of his that I connected with. But it's not something not my go-to listening song or album, really. But most of that song, because again, I know what it's like. I know what it's about, and I don't know. To me, there's nothing, especially nowadays. I have a lot less to be so rah, about things. So, it just pisses me off how people have hijacked it and don't really listen to what it's about.
Well, I had Heather on the podcast earlier this year, and she is a huge Leonard Cohen fan, and she talked about that Leonard Cohen's most well-known song is misunderstood as much as you could argue Bruce Springsteen's most well-known song is misinterpreted. And I thought that was pretty insightful. And at the time, this was right around the election, so I guess it must have been last year, but they had done it was whenever they did a tribute for all the people that had lost. So I guess it was in this year. And someone did a version of Hallelujah, and we're like, really? I guess it's a good song to choose, but it's very different. So
it's one of those, like, it sounds nice, and on paper I see why people go for it, but it's like you're not really listening.
Exactly. Yes. Bobby, this was great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Once again, tell us how to find you on social media and where to find your music.
So Bobby Mahoney and the Seventh Son, Seventhson. And the reason I spell it out is because we get a lot of errors with that. And, much to the chagrin of many poster makers and graphic designers over the years. So yeah, Bobby Mahoney and the Seventh Son. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Either at Bobby Mahoney Music or Bobby Mahoney and the Seventh Son. Our website is bobbymahoneymusic.com. Follow us on Spotify. Follow us on Apple Music, on Instagram, on I like to say Christian Mingle, Farmers Only.
Okay.
No, not those dating sites, but we are
Yes.
on the music sites, and just anywhere you can just Google us, you can find our music, and you might find so that's. You can tell how much I love the sales pitch. So yeah, please listen to our
exactly.
music.
Yeah. No problem, Bobby. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me. Good luck, continued success. Absolutely. Keep me posted. When you've got the new EP ready to go out, reach out to me. We'll have you on again so you can promote it. We'll play a few clips of the music and we'll talk about that. And if you're coming to Texas, absolutely, you're coming to DFW, let me know so we can meet up, share a beverage, and I can enjoy some music and maybe interview you live. Listeners, thank you for all your support. I appreciate all that you do to keep the podcast going. Go get vaccinated. Let's be good to each other. Wear your mask. Let's do what we need to do to get through this, because being good to each other is the only way we're going to make it through. For now, thank you, Bobby. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts, as well as a Merry Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now, who does? You can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.